Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri, the host of Fit Insider, the show where I talk with the entrepreneurs, executives, and investors who are redefining the business of fitness and wellness. Today, I'm joined by Jacob Rothman, founder and CEO of Perch. Perch is a velocity-based training system that uses 3D cameras to quantify and improve performance. In this episode, we talk about using technology to improve strength training, the idea of trickle-down health, where a company initially targets elite athletes before broadening its customer base, and how Jacob thinks about the role of content, community, competition, and data in the future of strength training. A quick reminder before we get into today's show. Every Tuesday, we send a weekly newsletter filled with insights and analysis on the business of fitness and wellness. Join other decision makers and industry operators by subscribing at insider.fit.co. Let's get into it. Hi, Jacob. Welcome to Fit Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure to be on. Appreciate it.
Excited to chat today and tell listeners a little bit about what you're working on at Perch and how you came to this idea. So to kick things off, can you give us the background and maybe fill us in on everything you have going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Perch. So high level, what Perch does is it's fitness technology for strength training. So what does that mean? So when you typically think about fitness technology, at least back when we started the company, it was primarily geared towards wearables, right? Things that you put on your body that track steps, heart rate, calories, primarily geared towards aerobic activity. And we felt there was a massive gap in the market or a big opportunity to provide a very similar experience, but for strength training. So counting sets, reps, power output, velocity, information about quality of movement and form. So that's really what we set out to do. That's quick background on the company.
Cool. And so just to maybe break that down a little bit, when you're talking about applying technology to strength training, obviously there's so many nuances like within the fitness category. And now it's come down to like activity tracking, personalization, on-demand content, various apps that do all these things, wearables or otherwise. When you talk about applying that to strength training, like what am I experiencing as a consumer, and maybe like who is the target end user?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically what our product is, or at least the first manifestation of our product, is it's a small camera and computer that are all encased in a small housing, then easily attached to essentially any weight rack. So essentially we're giving your weight rack a set of eyes and a brain, basically making it smart. That camera system is what we call it. We'll pair it to a tablet that's also attached on the weight rack, and after we'll walk up, they'll sign in. And then while they lift, we'll capture information such as sets, reps, velocity, power output, a couple additional metrics. We'll display that information in real time. So that educates and informs the workout, and then all that information gets stored. So the goal by making a computer vision is, the ceiling on the technology is really, really high. If we can capture, a plethora of different types of information, just not one piece of information on, or one point on the body or one point on the barbell, but we're seeing the entire picture, the entire image. And then it also makes the user experience super, super seamless, right? We're not really changing how athletes are interacting with the weight room, with the weights. They're lifting like they normally do, but now they're capturing all this additional information about themselves. And then in terms of who we sell it to, we're primarily right now geared towards elite athletics. So that's pro, collegiate, military facilities, even high schools and small performance facilities. Really, we're pretty diversified, but it's mainly geared towards athletes that are preparing for competition or combat right now, because those are the people where our technology is going to provide the most value to right now, at least in its current form.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And so when you talk about this computer vision and the camera and the housing, it sounds like you're really scaling the personal trainer experience and even capturing things that a personal trainer maybe might not be able to see, especially when it comes to, 10, 20, 50 people in the weight room throughout the day, and then providing that kind of one-on-one feedback and personalization. As I look at that report as somebody who's using this in the weight room, what am I seeing? How am I able to use this data? And then what are you guys doing also from like the feedback standpoint to make it more personalized?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the concept is super, super simple. We're basically starting with something called velocity-based training, which seems niche, but the concept is very simple and also very powerful. And I know your listeners are probably pretty versed in fitness, but I'll keep it high level. But typically the way you program like strength and conditioning, like cycle, right, or an 8-week period of workouts is you're going to measure like something called a 1 rep max, so the maximum amount of work that you can do on one specific repetition, and then you're going to base every single lift for the rest of that training cycle off of that a percentage of that 1 rep max. But what's really difficult about that is a 1 rep max, research has shown, can actually fluctuate plus or minus 18% on any given day, and that's a function of how much sleep you got, what other stressors are happening in your life, what you ate, all the above. So really that not only makes that first number that you measured really inaccurate, but then every day your 1 rep max is essentially fluctuating. So you have strength and conditioning coaches or personal trainers that are spending a ton of time actually programming and writing very specific workouts, but really those workouts are potentially not having the desired impact. And it can actually lead to safety issues or even overtraining or even undertraining. And so to give you an example, if you're programming, let's say a set of squats that you should be lifting 85% of your 1 rep max, if an athlete's having a really bad day, that could feel like 103% of their 1 rep max. So essentially what we're doing is we're closing that feedback loop, right? We're capturing information about quality of movement, like velocity, power output. So now instead of a coach programming lift this amount of weight, it's lift this speed, or I want you to hit this power output. And if an athlete can't hit that speed, right, they take a little weight off the bar, they lift a little lighter that day. And actually, if they're having a great day and they're exceeding that speed, they can lift heavier. So really the concept is just closing that feedback loop, giving athletes and coaches more insight into actually how they're performing on each and every day. All that data gets stored so a coach can visualize longitudinal trends. They can see, okay, my athlete's lifting, let's say 200 pounds faster this week than he lifted last week. The power output's going up, it's going in the right direction. So there really are a ton of different uses, but the concept is really just fundamentally measure quality of movement in the weight room. All that information is being missed right now, but it is really fundamental to strength training in general. And we've seen in our customers, we've really changed the way how our customers train in the weight room.
Sure. And then to clarify, so getting a better understanding about the business model is kind of the onus on the exerciser to take this data and then use it in terms of how they're programming workouts or training? Or are you saying really from who we're selling to who's doing the programming and looking at the feedback and data, that's the strength coach or the personal trainer who's using that information?
Yeah. So right now we're primarily prioritizing collecting really good quality information. And then we present that in a very easy to understand way to strength coaches. So right now the strength coaches are taking on the responsibility of analyzing that data, determining what to do with it. And that's what they prefer. But there's a lot of work we're doing right now in order to actually provide actionable insights, right? Provide visualizations, reports, allowing just the average consumer to make use out of this information. We started in a place where a lot of these coaches already understand and know how to leverage this type of training and this type of technology. But there's a very high ceiling on where we want to go and how we can make this technology accessible to everybody.
Yeah, maybe let's dig into that a little bit. It's not kind of a new concept in terms of like maybe this go to market. I know for Fit Insider, we've written about it as like trickle-down health, right? So like you target this elite, whether it's an athlete or operator, whoever, and then over time as you do some education in the market about what this product is, how it works, get some insights for yourself, then you look and say, what are the other segments that we can maybe target with this? One potentially that stands out just given COVID and how things have accelerated is everybody's at home exercising. Surely there's some applications there, but not to put words in your mouth. How are you guys thinking about the landscape and maybe how you go down the path from here?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That has always been our goal since we really founded the company was, we think we can fundamentally change the way people strength train, right? Not to get super off track here, but like right now, when you go into a weight room and you lift weights, the information you have access to is sets, reps, and how much weight you lifted, which is what you did, but not how well you did it. And this is a simplistic analogy, but that's equivalent to going to a track, running on a track 4 times without something as basic as a stopwatch, right? You ran a mile, but you don't know the quality of that mile. Is that an 8-minute mile, 12-minute mile? So we really believe that the data that we're collecting will fundamentally change the way people strength train for the better. So we've always believed that our technology can be used by consumers, just anybody looking to get stronger, stay safe in the weight room, look better with the shirt off. So that's really where we want to go. And I think generally strength training, like the type that we currently track, so barbell lifts, like at a weight rack, that's a really underserved community of individuals. And we're seeing like a lot of people have weight racks at home. A lot of people are lifting at home, especially given COVID and gym shutting down. They're looking for that feedback. They're looking for that connection, the ability to compete with others. They're looking for that community. And I think we have the opportunity to create a platform here with the data that we're collecting to enable that, right? To almost create kind of what Strava has done for running, do something very similar for strength training and people that love to lift weights.
It's been really interesting to see the strength training element progress and accelerate during COVID. Obviously, for as long as any of us can remember, since at-home fitness has been a thing, there's been the VHS, DVD, and apps for on-demand content. You can do all sorts of workouts. And then it's been cardio equipment. So all types of cardio equipment. Now we're putting screens on them. Now we're generating content for them. And more, it's starting to be like, what does this category look like for strength training? How do we provide feedback? How do we interpret this data? as I start to look at it and to have conversations with different founders, what differentiates kind of the screen, I guess camera, in this case, the computer vision that you guys are working on from maybe what other devices might have, and how are you able to differentiate in a category where, ultimately a phone has a camera and the screens now that are coming out have a camera, you guys have a camera. Can you just maybe explain this technology and landscape to me and how it's different and maybe better with Perch?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think really what we focus on is we are catering to people that love to lift. So if you look at a home gym, right, I think there's a lot of technology out there that are potentially doing similar things for strength, but it is I think a focus on its content first and technology second. And I think we're maybe going in a little bit of a different direction where it's really good technology, really high quality data first. And you can kind of see that from our current customer base, like working with LSU, New York Giants, like the Phillies. It's like they need the best type of technology, and that's what we're providing to them. And the goal is that we want our technology to be the effect of it to be felt, but it not really be seen, right? It's part of the workout in terms of the data helps motivate you. It helps make sure you're doing the right thing, but it is a small piece of what you're doing during the rest of the workout. And I think when you look at people in garage gyms, right, or people who are just lifting, they are looking for what can help them accelerate or do better. But for the most part, they already have a workout plan that they're following, or they have a coach that they work with, but they're looking for like better feedback, right? They want to make sure that they're lifting the right amount of weight, pursuing their goals, and they're on track to hit those goals. So I think that's really what our focus is less content, more seamless user experience, seamless data collection. We don't want you to necessarily change your workout habits, but we want to be a huge add-on to what you're already doing. And that's what we're doing with our current collegiate and professional sports teams customers, is just really being an add-on and allowing them to accelerate what they're already doing.
And then can you take us behind the scenes maybe with the technology that's gone into developing this, what your background is as it relates to this? I know personally I'm not, a technologist that understands the computer vision. How have you thought about assembling the team? How have you thought about the talent you've brought together? And what does that look like going forward as you think about growing the company?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of skipped over that at the beginning, but my background, I graduated from MIT in 2016 with a background in mechanical engineering. And I started the company with my two co-founders who were classmates of mine, also fellow varsity athletes at MIT. So we played sports together there. And so their backgrounds are mechanical engineering and computer science as well. So we've kind of built all of the technology in-house. We started it while we were seniors at MIT and we're part-time for a while and then went full-time recently. So everything is kind of where this came from was really a personal passion of ours, like a combination of, we were athletes in college. So a combination of interest in fitness and sports, as well as kind of seeing kind of the technological trends from a computer vision and machine learning standpoint, to seeing the market trends, right, with connected at-home fitness, where we feel is a really big gap in the market. So everything from the product has been built in-house for the most part early on by just the three of us. Really, I think we secured our first customer, which is LSU football, helped them on their way to the national championship with the three of us. And then since then, we've kind of grown as a company. We're still pretty small. We're still a startup. We're about 7 full-time now. And really, the goal is to continue to scale the engineering team as well as the business development side of the business.
Yeah, awesome to hear. And on the point of the team and continuing to grow, you mentioned about 7 folks. Have you raised any money to date? How are you thinking about building and funding the company as you continue to grow? Obviously, securing some of these collegiate and professional partners has been beneficial, but what does that look like and how are you thinking about it from maybe a fundraising standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've raised a little over $1 million up to this point. So a combination of mostly high net worth individuals. But yeah, early on when we were just the concept, it was, just eating through our savings. I think luckily as young founders, we didn't have a ton of family expenses. So we were able to go a little while without necessarily taking a salary. And then also having some big name customers is certainly helpful. So those are all paying customers. So that helps. We've had profitable months up to this point, which is really, really good. So it's really good to have those customers. It helps with brand. And then it also helps they provide amazing feedback, allowing us to continue to improve the product. And then those logos additionally will continue to help us add more value to consumers and additionally help us raise more capital in the future. So it's been a combination of revenue financing just from selling product and some actually fundraising. And then early in 2021, we expect to raise some more capital as well in order to really accelerate what we're doing.
Yeah, it's exciting. Especially the point, being able to, as you said, 3 people building their technology and selling it getting LSU, helping them win a national championship, at least being a part of that process and experience. It's something oftentimes that I don't want to say it's overlooked, but it's certainly challenging when you're selling to the very highest end of the market, how you go and get these consumers who do so much to validate what you're working on. You said, you put that logo on the site or in the deck when you start selling. Also, they're providing feedback. Just, okay, take us, talk about that a little bit. How are you able to walk into maybe LSU or any of these other teams or professional settings and say like, hey, you need to use this product? What does that look like from a customer acquisition standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we weren't scared to fail early on. I think we've probably been trying to sell the product since when we first had the concept, which was probably like early 2016. And that's kind of been built into the ethos of the culture of the company where, we still feel like our product has a long way to go, even though we support some of the best athletic teams in the world. So basically the sales cycle was early on. We were just trying to talk to as many teams as we could, get as much feedback as we could. We were building the technology, trying to put it in gyms, demo this, let us know what you think. And then eventually, we reached the point where we started making some of those sales. So the sales cycle changed, or the messaging changed a little bit, where we're starting to sell products. So like LSU, for instance, it's really a cold email. Like I think we're pretty convincing over email. And, I got a phone call from the head strength and conditioning coach at LSU. We had a quick conversation. Early on, I was doing a lot of demos in person, certainly not happening now, but I flew down there, met with them. They demoed the tech, and, a few months later, they purchased the product. And that was, beginning of the football season in 2019. So before they won the national championship. So that was kind of sales cycle. Typically a sales cycle is right now it's word of mouth. We don't spend a ton of money on marketing. I think a lot of people like what we do. They like the product. They hear about it from colleagues, from other strength and conditioning coaches, and they reach out. And all we're trying to do is provide value and really change the way these organizations lift. I think the value is pretty obvious. It's, every time LSU lifts, it's like we see over 1,000 sets come through. It's like literally every athlete, every set, every rep, they're tracking what they're doing with our technology. So I think having those types of customers can really help. But yeah, it's certainly a different type of sales cycle than going a direct to consumer.
Would you say it's similar, maybe the same? Oftentimes you hear so much about SaaS products and enterprise that once they become kind of ingrained in an organization, the switching cost is astronomical, right? You don't want to switch to a new product. Is that something that you guys can say, will lend itself to selling into these big and professional organizations, whether it's collegiate or otherwise? Or is it something where this market, as it relates to strength coaching and in these elite weight rooms, is very competitive and there's a lot of switching that goes on between the different products?
I do think there is some switching, but I think the switching happens when companies fail to continue to innovate, right? And if a better product comes out, strength and conditioning coaches, athletic organizations, they will switch. So of course our plan is to continue to innovate, but there is some barrier to switching, right? Coaches have learned how to use our system. They have a bunch of historical data. It's like I was talking to LSU's head strength coach recently, and they're not having as good of a year this year as they had last year. So he was like, well, I know that's not my fault because I looked at our data from this year compared to last year. And my guys are actually stronger than they were last year. So that historical data has a huge impact. They can see other guys are progressing and they can really kind of compare apples to apples, teams to teams. So there is a little bit of that, I think, but certainly it's our job to continue to innovate and continue to provide value to these athletes and coaches.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's what I wanted to get to and was hinting at, that when you think about continuing to innovate and add value, obviously they have the data and they're able to see what's happening. You guys also have that data and able to use it to, your benefit. When you think about the roadmap and what it looks like, obviously it almost, and you can kind of explain it, correct me if I'm wrong, but splits out, right? What you're focusing on and able to do for the existing clients and continuing to build and own that elite market, and then maybe potentially a separate roadmap for how it breaks into the consumer market. How are you thinking about some of those milestones and continuing to innovate and add value as you go forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So really what we view our core product is really that underlying computer vision technology. And if you look at just the roadmap of that, it's very similar for both consumer and elite, right? It's accurate, good, reliable data tracking. It's tracking a multitude of different exercises. It's doing that automatically. So they're limiting the amount of manual input that somebody has to put into the system. All of that is very, very similar, right? Of course, you want to explore different types of cameras, maybe ones that are more cost effective. Maybe it's different types of computers or ways to process that data that's more cost effective for consumers. but that underlying technology is very, very similar. I think what will change in both instances is one, right now we are hardware products, and it's like we sell this product because it basically works very well for our current customer base, right? Every activity is performed at a weight rack. So we built our product to be basically attached to a weight rack and add on to a weight rack. That might not be the case for a consumer market, right? Additionally, our hardware is very powerful in order to do the things that these athletes, these strength coaches required. Might not be the way for consumers. So I think there's a little bit of divergence from a hardware development standpoint, or even if you mentioned phones earlier, if we need hardware in the first place, certainly things that we're exploring and looking at. And then really what will change a lot is the user experience standpoint. So we think a lot about like Whoop, for instance. They've done a really, really good job of distilling like HRV or some of this complex data into something that's actionable for consumers, to something that's really motivating, something people really understand. And I think that's where we want to take our products, where we can just be a add-on to a weight rack or something that you perform workouts in front of, and you're able to get a score. You're really with actionable insights, right? We're able to inform you how much weight should be on the barbell, how many sets and reps you should be doing today, what you should be doing next week and the week after to really achieve that goal. There's also a ton of opportunity to basically become a platform to try to connect personal trainers or strength and conditioning coaches, people who are working out remotely, right? Providing better, more actionable data than just a video to these coaches so they can do their job better. So I think there's a ton of opportunity there, but really it starts from a core of good computer vision. And then we can build basically a platform around that technology.
Yeah. It's, where my mind goes as well. When you think about it, I had Will Ahmed from Whoop on the podcast previously. And, one thing that stood out to me was he said, it's not a matter of how much data that we collect and interpret. It's what we choose to show the customer. It's like, that's really where the secret is, because you don't want to overwhelm them with all this, information that we're collecting. We just want to tell them the most actionable thing. When you think about the computer vision piece, and now we talked a little bit about the screens and the phones, and of course there are wearables like Whoop. You've hinted at building a platform, obviously remote coaching and training in a at-home environment, or at least maybe post-COVID in a hybrid environment. What have you started to put the thought into? I'm sure that you have, but how far have you gone down the path of what a platform could look like, where all these different pieces fit in, and like ultimately how Perch makes itself invaluable to that overall experience? Not just, hey, when I'm strength training, this is what I'm doing, but also this is what my wearable is telling me. This is what my coach is telling me. This is what I need to know from a recovery standpoint, all that being part of the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty complex, and I'd say that we don't necessarily have a formal thesis around this or what our product's going to look like in the future, but there definitely is a platform approach. And I think something that we've always told ourselves, just to hit on what you said at the end, really, I think our data becomes more valuable and a wearables data becomes more valuable if you can marry those two together, right? If you can understand, we're already seeing that in our current customer base. There are systems called like GPS units. So it's like something you wear under your football pads or on a vest if you're like playing soccer. It basically tracks everything you're doing on the field, right? How far you ran, how fast you ran. But when you step into the weight room, all that information is being missed, right? So that data that you collect on the field, that's great. But if you're not really fully understanding what's going on the other 50% of the time, that data is way less valuable. So I think our goal is, how do we combine all this information into one platform so we can fully understand, get an overall picture of your overall health and wellness, and then potentially allow you to share that data with other people, like your insurance company or your healthcare provider or your doctor, for instance. So there's a ton of different opportunities there to basically be that missing piece or help complete that picture. In terms of what we really value from a product experience standpoint, I think it's kind of like three main pillars. There's certainly always a content piece. So it's helping people determine what they should be doing when they're at home working out. I think really understanding what people have done in the past, what their current fitness level is, can help. So we either want to connect people with coaches to help provide that content or provide that content ourselves. We want to help create a community around this data. So if you have really good data around like power output, other metrics that you can track, it makes a way more compelling experience to allow people to compete or interact remotely, especially if you're logging that data automatically. And then it's really good data analytics. So like what Whoop does a really, really good job, and they're certainly hitting some of these other pillars as well, but allowing you to like show progress over time, track that information, and then help people determine if they're on the track to their goals. So I think those are all the things we're thinking about and focusing on in order to really, bring this to consumers.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it also paints a really clear picture when you break it out, that the content, the community / competition piece, and then the data analytics, and then applying that to obviously some of the seismic shifts that are happening across the fitness space, no shortage of opportunity. And when I know this is difficult I mean, for anybody, but also especially for a startup where it's like you're basically just trying to get through today. But when you look out into the future, whether it's 6 months or maybe even this time next year, do you have in your mind some benchmarks or milestones that if you hit those, you'd be able to walk away pretty confidently saying like, we're successful, or at least trending in the right direction towards what we want to do?
Yeah, that's fair. It's really hard to set milestones because it's, especially given COVID, everything just changes. And it's like what we do is we just work really hard and we do the best we can. And a lot of the stuff is out of our control. But really our kind of main initiatives are we're trying to expand in the collegiate and professional space. We have some really good logos and some installs planned towards the end of this year and beginning of next year. But there's still a ton of room to grow in the collegiate professional space. You know, we have about 10 special forces customers, but there's a lot of opportunity to provide value to operators and human performance advisors in the military. That's a big goal of ours. And then we have received a lot of interest from high schools and small gyms. So the goal is to continue to expand kind of downstream. And then eventually we've also received a lot of interest from organizations internationally. So there's a ton of opportunity to really become a global leader in sports performance with what we're doing. But there is kind of this shift, right? And there's definitely a big opportunity for us to provide value in the consumer space. So I think we've started, like, we're very selective about it, but we've had a lot of individuals reach out wanting to use our product in their home gyms, for instance. We've been very selective about, you know, who we sell the product to, but that is like a big goal of ours, right? We want to learn from those individuals. We want to continue to improve the core technologies as well as build an experience that allows them to get the most out of the product they can. So I think that is, I don't think we have any big milestones there, but continue to explore that space and learn from those individuals and being more consumer minded.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we look to wrap up here, this is a great opportunity. Part of the thing that, you know, we want to do is, you know, be a conduit for connecting, whether that's different partners, different interesting parties, you know, trainers, strength coaches. So if folks were interested in getting in touch with you, maybe following Perch on social, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so you can visit our website, perch.fit. FIT, and you can also reach out, just the contact us form on the website. You know, we're a small company, so I'll probably see those. So definitely get in touch. And then we are hiring right now, both on the engineering side, primarily software development, and also looking for, you know, some people that can just get after it on the business development side. So if you're interested in what we do, yeah, definitely reach out.
Yeah, and I hope folks take you up on that. Jacob, it was awesome chatting with you today. I appreciate you making time.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Joe.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's episode. For more from Fit Insider, visit insider.fit.co and subscribe to our weekly newsletter for insights and analysis on the business of fitness and wellness. Then go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. See you next time.